Alright guys, welcome back to a new video. So the video I did 2 days ago did pretty well. That was more of just an update as I hadn't actually uploaded one for about 6 months. But yeah, with all the spare time I have at the moment, I'm thinking I'm going to try and push on, make as many of these as I possibly can whilst keeping it interesting and not repetitive. But yeah, so I asked you guys on Instagram on my story to give me some topics to discuss. So yeah, I'll just get straight into the first one. So the first one is from the legend Maliki Kran, and he says, freestyle now versus 2 years ago. I actually received a similar one from Mitch saying freestyle 2017 versus now, so I'll combine the two together. So I think in terms of the level of freestylers then compared to now, it's much higher now on average across all the freestylers, whereas back in the day there was maybe 4 or 5 freestylers in the UK who were at the top of their game, whereas now there aren't as many individuals at the top, but the level is spread a lot more evenly across everyone. So in many ways I think people can enjoy meets more because everyone's at a similar level. Instead of at the past where you'd have beginners with pros training, now everyone's at a bit more of an even level. But aside from that, in terms of community, I think there's much more of a sense of community now and togetherness. Although the UK probably isn't the best in terms for meets and competitions and things, back in 2017 and 2016 when I started, the UK scene was essentially divided into Surrey, and then the north like Manchester, York and around that area. It was kind of split up where people would stick to their own kind of region, whereas now all the freestylers from across the UK obviously are in group chats together, go to meets together, and we all kind of mingle a lot more. So in a way I think the community is probably more intertwined now than it was in 2017. So yeah, in terms of UK scene, I think we've improved a lot, but in relation to other countries such as Norway and especially Sweden, Denmark, a lot of the Scandinavian countries, what we lack is competitions, meets, a sense of identity. One thing I've noticed is, for example, Sweden, PWG has his For Evolution clothing line. It kind of shares that around the Swedish freestylers and they all have something kind of as an identity. The same with Denmark, they have DFFC, which is like their kind of identity. Whereas I don't really feel like we have anything like that in England. Back in 2016, 17 and 18, there was Ballers District who used to sponsor freestylers. Their clothing line was quite big in the freestyle scene in England, whereas they've started dropping off a little bit and they're not making clothes, I don't believe, anymore. So they had a big impact, but yeah, they're just some of the differences that I've noticed in my time from 2016 to now. Second one is from Marcus Freestyle 01, and he says, do you think there'll be a UK champs in 2021? Honestly, I haven't got a clue because no one really knows at all until like 3 or 4 months beforehand whether or not it's going to happen. So the one in 2018 was organised by Andrew Henderson. He works with a lot of brands, so he had the funding really to organise 2018. I think now that Andrew started to step away from the freestyle scene, there isn't really anyone else with as much presence as him. Steve Gray's a UK ambassador, I believe, but obviously he organises Ultimate Freestyle. And then aside from Steve and Andrew, there isn't really anyone else who I think is capable of making a UK champs, I won't lie. So in my opinion, for now it will just be the Manchester Jam, the London Jam, and just meets really. No major competitions, I wouldn't say, except for Ultimate Freestyle in Telford, which obviously hopefully should be going on early 2021, I believe. But yeah, there's no more word on that. So the next question is from Luca.freestyle, and he asks favourite OMBs. So the one I'm using at the moment, the Tango 12, this is probably one of my favourite balls I've ever had. I've had about 3 of these, including this one. So yeah, I like that. I also really like the Finale 7, which, as you guys know, I used for quite a while until I sold that recently. But yeah, I'm trying to stick to one ball now instead of switching around, because I find that I kind of sustain my level more by using one ball and not keep on changing things up. And then Luca also asked me to mention the UKFS community. So I've already more or less discussed all that I have to say. To be honest, I think the biggest thing that we need is meets. I think competitions is one thing, but actually meeting to train and forget about the competitive side is a much bigger aspect of what needs to be done. Obviously you have small regular meets like I do with Sam and Janos and everyone in Manchester, and then down south obviously there's a couple of people around the kind of Bristol area, a few people down in South London who meet up regularly, but there's not really as much of a sense of the whole UK scene at those meets. And I feel like to progress the community really we need to start meeting up more, which obviously is hard considering people have to get trains and things like that. but I think we just need to take an example from other countries. As I mentioned, Sweden and Denmark and Norway, places like that, and France as well. France have a huge community. Yeah, just look at other countries and take an example and basically apply their situation to us. So Sam Lord asks a very good question. So do you think competitions like WPSC and PAX are a true reflection of who is best? Personally, I don't think you can ever choose one person who is best. I think with competitions such as PACT, once you get to the top 4, it's really difficult to kind of differentiate different lower freestylers. It's common opinion that Luca is the best lower freestyler in the world, which I partly agree with. But I think sometimes it can be unfair to pinpoint one freestyler as the best because, as I say, the top 4 of PACT are all their own level above everyone else, so you can't really differentiate one person. There's kind of a group of best freestylers in my opinion. But yeah, it depends what you mean by best, because there's competition best, there's video best, like where you can train for weeks and weeks to get your best combos, which you might not be able to do in competitions. And the same applies for the WPSC competition, which is for sits. And I think you have to kind of take them competitions with a pinch of salt and appreciate who the best freestylers are, and not just the individual one best freestyler who wins the competition.
Sorry.
It's alright.
Why, did you just hop that way?
Oh yeah, of course. I was just thinking you might trip over the wire. Yeah. Oh, it's alright, don't worry. It's alright. So next up, Eddie FS asks, how big do you think freestyle could be in 10 years time? I actually made a video about 2 years ago when someone asked me the exact same question. I think my answer last time was that I hope it can become kind of a global professional sport that isn't... Obviously at the moment we have professionals who make a living out of it doing shows and stuff, but I mean on a much higher level. Clearly it's unlikely that it'll ever reach the heights of football and basketball and all the major Olympic sports, but I don't see why it couldn't reach the level of some lower Olympic sports such as the all the dancing categories. Clearly for the Olympics it wouldn't be an open competition like Super Bowl where you have hundreds and hundreds of people entering. If it was laid out like Red Bull Street Style, or in fact Red Bull Street Style was brought into the Olympics, I think it would work quite well, because obviously as we know Red Bull Street Style lasts 2 days, the Olympics lasts I'm not sure how long, but you know, more than a few days, so I think there's definitely an allowance to have freestyle in the Olympics eventually, if it got that big, yeah. Daniel K asks, what country in your opinion has the best freestylers, in brackets obviously Poland? Honestly, Poland actually would maybe be my first or second answer. I think it's the same with Poland and Russia and a lot of the Eastern European countries. I think they have a lot of freestylers who are unknown and have extremely high levels that no one actually knows about. So for example, I know the young community in, for example, Poland and especially Russia with Ilian and other freestylers who I won't try and pronounce the names of. The young community is very strong in terms of level and potential, but I wouldn't say there's a country that outweighs the others completely, but I'd say probably somewhere like Mexico probably has the highest level in terms of lowers, and then for all around Norway, always Norway, not just because of Erlend and Brynjar and people like that, but all the young freestylers like Sindre and Sondre and all of them, they all have extremely high levels from an extremely young age. So next is Janos 1998, and he just mentions freestyle meets. So obviously I've mentioned them a little bit before in the other questions, but I think freestyle meets kind of create the basis for a good community, because the only way people can get on and make a good community is by knowing each other and becoming friends, and obviously you can't do that without meeting each other. So freestyle meets are really important, especially inside a country such as the UK, as I mentioned, but also things like Super Bowl where lots of different people from different countries meet. And I think globalising the sport creates a lot of potential for growth, as reaching it out to wider communities raises awareness, and yeah, will hopefully make it become a much more popular sport. So Ross Brown FS asks, favourite top 5 freestylers and why? And then he DM'd me after and saying in order. Honestly, I couldn't give you it in order, but on there would definitely be Griffin Berridge as a UK representative. I think anyone's lying if they don't say Erlend. I'd also say Janos, who actually asked one of the questions before. I meet him quite a lot with Sam, and I feel like he isn't very well known for how good his level is. And in competitions especially, he only usually shows a small amount of tricks that when he's training, he can actually do a lot more. So yeah, Erlend, Griffin, Jesse, Janos, and then I'd have to say someone like Alexei for lowers. Peter Jaskieski asks, opinion on judging at Red Bull Street Style and creativity. I think in terms of judging at Red Bull Street Style, obviously it causes huge controversy. I know in terms of judging at freestyle, it causes huge controversy when there's a celebrity guest. So last competition was Nani, the Portuguese footballer, and then the time before was Gary Neville, the English footballer. And clearly these people don't actually know anything about the sport, and they're just judging on what they think looks best. And with having special guests as judges, as the general public do, they often judge freestyle on who does the biggest or the most extravagant of something. For example, they wouldn't notice like the intricate creativity of the Japanese freestylers, but would see either Charlie or Boyka or any of the South Americans do a handstand catch and automatically rule them as better, when in actual fact what the Japanese freestylers doing, one is more creative. But yeah, above all, the celebrity guests aren't actually judging on creativity, they're just judging on gut instinct, and without even having a knowledge of the sport, I think it's pretty much near impossible to have any gut instinct of what you're watching. So yeah, I think they should get rid of them and just keep a normal freestyle judging panel. Rory Smith FS says, land in a 3-rev before doing 10 basics. Now I have two views on this. Some freestylers I know, for example Mitch Bourne, shout out to you, he started off by basically just landing hard tricks and not bothering about basics, but now he started to develop his basics and now can incorporate the big tricks into his combos. But what I'm trying to say is he already has the big tricks, so all he needs to do is work on basics and then can incorporate it all together, like I mentioned with Mitch. So I don't think 3 revs before basics is that bad of an idea if you're prepared to put in the work to do the basics. But if it becomes a thing where you just do the tricks and don't learn basics at all, then I think yeah, it can have a negative impact on your freestyle. I think football content has its place and freestyle content has its place, and I don't think the two should ever be combined. I think if you wanted to actually make a quick living off social media, then obviously football content is the way to go. But if you wanted to get a high level in freestyle, then obviously football content is not the way to go, and instead working hard and dedicating yourself to training is the only way that you'll be able to build up a high enough level. So yeah, I don't think making football content is bad at all, but I think combining it when you're training hard with freestyle is not the best thing to do, really. I think the thing with these videos is I'm trying not to be too opinionated, and I'm trying to give a more general idea. So I have quite a lot of strong opinions on these topics, and I'll talk about them with other freestylers, but I don't think it's really appropriate for me to mention them in a video. Finn Lilwall asks, how often do you train and how do you get the most out of your sessions? Now I'm absolutely the worst person to ask for advice on this. I train every day and I train for maybe 2.5 hours a day. However, I don't really train smart. I kind of go out and just do whatever I can be bothered to do on that day. I don't set my mind to anything, I don't think about what I'm going to do before the session. So I've had a lot of conversations with people like Sam Cunningham recently, who, as you'll know, is probably one of the fastest improving freestylers in the world, I'd say. And I know that he has a very strong mentality of preparing what he wants to do before he trains and then sticking at it until he achieves it. And I think the persistence that he has is something that I don't have, so I'm not the person to ask. But yeah, I think freestyle is something that you kind of have to think about and just stick at it no matter what. So for example, if you're a beginner and you're trying to do a certain trick, just keep training it every day and every day until you land it. Same with combos really, and just everything that you're doing in your session needs to be thought about and just kept going at it until you achieve it, yeah. Jean Pierre FS says, no topics but really enjoy these videos, better than Joe Weller. That actually brings me on to a topic in itself. So Joe Weller has his podcast called Waffling, and essentially me and Sam, as well as a couple of other people I've spoken to, we're thinking of making little podcasts, especially during lockdown. We can find ways of doing it online, but also afterwards whilst we're in the same space together. So I've spoken to people like Mitch, Sam, Ross Brown, a few people like Elliot Major and Sam Cunningham, and everyone that kind of I'm mates with in the freestyle community. So yeah, there is potential for a podcast which would be a video similar to this, but obviously longer, a bit more fun, with involvement from obviously more than just me. So yeah, look out for that in the near future, possibly further future, but yeah, that's something we're trying to sort quite soon. Mitch Bourne asks about the importance of training because you enjoy FS and not forcing yourself to train. I'm not really sure that question makes any sense, but I'll try and get to the point. Just talking about training in general, I think it's better to enjoy it than kind of push yourself too hard. I think sometimes you can try too hard and it becomes a bit boring, which is a kind of what's happened to me a little bit. I think when you're first starting and you're discovering all the tricks and just discovering the community, it's really, really fun. So I think there needs to be something done to kind of keep that fun going. One of those things, as I've mentioned a few times now, is meets and competitions. I think meeting other freestylers is possibly one of the funnest things you can do in terms of freestyle. And also something else is, not listening to freestyle songs, but listening to songs that you enjoy and would listen to chilling at home. I try and base my training as much on how I would chill at home as possible. For example, I'll just wear loose fitted, normal, casual t-shirts. Shorts and shoes obviously can't change. Listening to music that you enjoy rather than listening to music that you think is good for freestyle, if you know what I mean. And just trying to adapt your training sessions to make you feel as comfortable as possible and relaxed. I think being relaxed is the best way to make the most of your sessions. And yeah, enjoying freestyle is possibly the most important thing about training. And then the final question, which has just come in, is from Isaac McMaster, and he says, are there any specific sports that you do that benefit your training sessions? I'd be lying if I said I didn't come home from training and just sit in my room all day. I used to play football on a weekend, which does help I suppose with fitness, but I reached the maximum age for that without going into the men's team, so I left that. I went for a run once or twice and absolutely destroyed my knees, so I'm not doing that. But I do cycle a lot, so everywhere I travel, my bike is my main mode of transport, whether that be like an hour or 20 minutes to college and things like that. So I think just keeping up general fitness is the most important. I don't think there's any specific things you can do to kind of give yourself an advantage. I think just general fitness is the most important. Eating well as well, which is something I need to do myself. But yeah, just walking and cycling and just basic things that don't require a lot of effort can go a long way. But yeah, that is all the questions that I've been given. I feel like this video is probably a lot longer than I expect it to be. I feel like I've only been sat here about 20 minutes, but I'm sure this video is going to be at least like 25-30 minutes, but we'll see when it gets trimmed down. I might have to cut some of the questions out. But yeah, I'm hoping you guys are enjoying these videos, because honestly, I'm just sat in a forest just talking nonsense about topics that you guys are giving me. It's very much reliant on the things you guys ask me to talk about. So a special thanks goes to all the people who actually sent in the topics for me to discuss. But yeah, that's pretty much the end. My legs are going to give way soon. I've got terrible cramp. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. But yeah, as I said in the video 2 days ago, just share this around with other freestylers, people you think will enjoy it. Try and build up a bit of an audience that will actually come to my videos regularly. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh.